Hello, and welcome to Battery Bargains, a series from the Batteries Included podcast where we match up real people with the right electric vehicle for their particular situation. This is episode number 6. I'm Dominic Yoni, host of the YouTube channel Drive Electric with Dominic, and I am joined today by, by the highly esteemed Mr. Tom Malogny from the State of Charge YouTube channel, as well as he is also senior editor at Inside EVs. If you're looking for your own battery bargain, email us a couple short paragraphs with Find My EV in the subject line and tell us about your use case and budget, and we'll see about featuring your case on an upcoming episode. So before we get into the show, that's from before. Okay, sorry. Let's kick this off with our first case today. And to be transparent, we've paraphrased these emails a bit for length and clarity. So Al sent us an email, and he says, "Hi guys. I'm thinking about getting a used Tesla Model Y long range with less than 50,000 miles. It would most likely be a 2020. I have seen a lot of them for 35K. I'm willing to go nationwide for a black with white interior and 19-inch wheels. What do you guys think? Am I missing out on a lot by not getting a 2023? I'd love to hear what you guys think." Al. All right. So 2020 Model Y, Tom. So the Model Y, I guess, was they just began production in 2020, early in that year. He's seen them for less than 35K. I don't know. Have you seen them that low?
I really haven't been searching for that Model Y over a period, but just now because of this, I did a quick search, and that's really about as low as you're going to get that I found at least. And evidently he's looking countrywide. So, he probably, if he's saying he could find them for that, then I take him at his word. And I take it that he's not interested in looking at other vehicles. He didn't say recommend a different type of vehicle for us. And personally, I don't think you're missing much, Al. Like you're saying, am I missing something or not getting a 2023? If you find a 2020 in good shape, I don't think there were any really big improvements. It's not like, I had a 2019 Tesla Model 3, but then I bought the 21 because they did the refresh, and then it included the heat pump. The Model Y launched with a heat pump, so it has a heat pump system. Sure, there were some small improvements along the way, but I also, other than like body fitment issues when the Model Y first launched, I don't remember there being any like major problems that Tesla had to correct. So it's not like, you're getting something that is just not built as well as the 2023s. Now, of course, I think Tesla has improved gradually as the years have gone on. Would you be getting a better vehicle as a 2023? I would venture to guess, yeah, you are, but at what cost? Is it worth the extra, I don't know, $7,000? How much extra would it cost to get one that's a 2023? Maybe even more. I'm not sure. So I would, if I was in your boat based on the information you gave us, where you're just deciding between a 2020 and a 2023, with the savings that you could have in those model years, I would just look for as good a well-kept 2020 with the spec that I wanted. You mentioned black with white interior, 19-inch wheels. And when that right one popped up, I would just jump on it really quickly. And like you said, you're willing to go nationwide. So just keep checking every day. And when one pops up, just jump on it and go for it. I think that's what I would do at least. What about you, Dom?
I think I'd be tempted to do the same because I think the only big difference, well, there's a few differences now that I think about it. So there's the hardware 3, it changed to hardware 4 in 2023, early, I think April-ish kind of time frame. So builds after that may have a better camera, I think better processor as well. Also, newer 2023 Model Ys are built at the Gigafactory using the mega castings. So the build quality might be better for those. But I don't know if it's worth, the difference in money that you'd pay, because the new ones, if you want to buy a new one, well, they're start at $48,990 for a dual motor. If you want, if to want to compare it to match it up against a comparable older one, because now they also have the rear wheel drive Model Ys available. So those have start at $43,000 or $44,000 basically. 44. Yeah, I mean, I guess you have to look at your use case and what kind of numbers you like as far as like range goes, because that less expensive new Model Y, it's not going to have, I think, the range that the dual motors have, the older the older Model Ys have. So yeah, I guess it's up to you. Personally, I think I would probably stick with an older one just to save the money, because there's a pretty big difference if I could buy one for say 40 rather than 48 or 50. Which that's a decent savings there. Yeah, so that's kind of where I would go.
Well, you also have to figure if you were to buy a new one, the tax credit is another thing to consider. So
Oh,
you
that's
really
true.
you have to roll the numbers and see, exactly how much the savings would be. I still think it would be enough to persuade me to get a 2020, unless you've got a lot of money and it doesn't matter. If you want to spend another $6,000 or $7,000. I'm guessing that's not the case. If that was the case, you wouldn't have even asked us. You would have just gone out and ordered a new one. So, for me, I still think it'll be significant enough delta to make it worth getting the used one.
Well, that incentive kind of changes my calculations. I think I'm
We
on
don't
the
know if he
fence.
qualifies for the incentive personally either,
True,
Dom. We don't know
true.
if the person, if their tax situation means they can get it. So
Right. And that was my situation last time I wanted to buy that Chevy Bolt, right? Couldn't really take advantage of much of the federal tax incentive.
mhm.
But if you can, in this case, I think that I like the idea of having a newer car, because just your warranty you're just more secure for the first few years with that brand new warranty. I like that coverage and just that peace of mind, and that might be worth like the differential in the prices there. But yeah, ready to go on to the next one?
Let's do it.
Okay, so this is from Mark and Al. Um, Hello, guys. My 20-year-old daughter Al is a college student in central Canada, wanting to buy her first car ever, and she wants it to be an EV. She can comfortably afford to spend 15K US. That's about 20,000 Canadian, and possibly squeeze the budget to 17 to 18,000 max US. That's 24,000 Canadian. Her primary concern is reliability. Her daily commute is unknown at this point, but 80 to 100 miles return trip would likely be plenty. She would also like to do some occasional road trips. DC fast chargers can be about 200 miles apart. So they say Central Canada, so I'm thinking maybe possibly Winnipeg, though some people in Ontario also call themselves Central Canada. So yeah, but 200 miles between chargers. She wouldn't likely road trip the car in the winter. 50 kilowatt hour DC charging speed would be acceptable since she won't road trip very often. She prefers smaller vehicles. The BMW i3 was at the top of her list, but older models have too short a range, and we read about issues with the pre-2017 models. So the 2017 or newer i3 are an option, but we are worried about the high cost of repairing BMWs should something go wrong. The Bolt is another option, but currently none are within her budget. The Hyundai Kona is likely her preferred option right now, but again, none are within her budget. The Leafs range are too short. Thanks, Mark and Al. So there's quite a bit to unwind there. But I did spend some time looking at this actually yesterday, this question, and I did find some vehicles that I thought were in her price range, but also on her list of preferred vehicles. So let's see if I can pull one of these up on the shared screen. Let's see. We'll look at this. So this is right. Hyundai Kona electric preferred. So there's a couple of Hyundais in here, but they're both in Quebec, which is a bit of a drive, and they're both right up against your budget mark at 23,989. So I'm thinking that's probably not going to work for you. Instead, I would suggest a Chevy Bolt. I did find some Chevy Bolts that are in your price range. So I'm trying to find my right window here with all those cars. Okay, so here's the one I think that is the highest one on my list of cars to get. So, right, I believe it's this one. Right. So this is in Chilliwack. That's in British Columbia. So also far away from central Canada. But yeah, and it's right up against your budget too, 23,990. I think the budget maxed out at 24,000 Canadian. So I'm not really sure what to tell you about this, because there's a few like that one in that Bulls is a great deal, but it's on the other side of the mountains from where you are and across the prairies. So it would cost, I would imagine, a couple of grand Canadian to get it to central Canada, and so that would definitely put it out of your budget. So my only other option, really, well, I have a couple options. I was thinking Hyundai Ioniq, like the original Hyundai Ioniq. There are some of those available for sale used in Canada. Actually, I can pull up a screen here. Stop that screen and share these ones. And you can see on the screen, yes, a bunch of Hyundai Ioniqs. So they're around the 20,000 mark Canadian, basically, or a little bit below that, depending. But you got to watch, where they are. It seemed like a lot of these are in Quebec as well. Here's one in Thornhill. That's in Ontario, 152,000, but it's 100,000 miles. That is a problem. But I mean, you could find some with decent mileage. If you can find some with decent mileage, like here's one with 107,000 kilometers. That's like 65,000 miles, 18.9. So that's, well beneath your budget. So you could afford actually the shipping on something like that. And that's good for what, like 150 miles of range, the Ionics, Tom?
Well, new. I think it was like 140 something, and I'm not sure what year that was because they bumped it up. That was probably the first generation. So I don't
Okay.
think it was even 140. I don't remember exactly how much it was. So I think we're looking closer to 100 by now, considering it's used. So but that seems to fit their use case, and that was a good pickup for you. Talking about the first gen Ionics, I my mind immediately went to Kona and Bolt, because that's probably they said that the Leaf wasn't a consideration, because that was my first thought. But I mean, I would look at those first gen Ionics for sure. You just want to get it fully charged and see what the range estimator says. Even though that's not going to be perfectly accurate, at least it probably give you a decent idea of what kind of condition the battery's still in, because you just don't know. Now, Canada is a good place for batteries because it doesn't get super, super hot like Arizona. And while it'll hurt your range in the winter, it doesn't hurt the battery. The cold doesn't really harm the battery unless it's, brutally, brutally cold where you left it to just brick and be cold all the time. It robs you of some range, but it's actually not detrimental to the battery like heat is. If you have an EV that's been parked in Arizona for 4 years, and parking lots that get up to 120 degrees just baking in the sun, that's going to be a lot harder on the battery than, if you're up in Canada and, the thing frequently sits at 0 Celsius or colder. So that's, I think your idea of the Ioniq was a good pickup. I would still say just keep searching for Bolts and Konas. This is a tough situation you're in. There's not a lot of money to work with here. And, the Dom pulling the first gen Ioniq out of his hat was actually a pretty good idea. And maybe you ought to start taking a look and see, countrywide, how much they cost. I don't think it'll cost you as much as Dom thinks to ship it. You're saying a couple grand. I mean, I can get a car shipped from New Jersey to California for like $1,000. So, I don't know how far of a distance you're traveling where you're shipping it, but I would think you could get a carrier to take a car to your house for less than $1,000, depending on, really, I don't know the landscape of where you live compared to where you'll be buying it, but that might be a consideration also. Although it's so tough to buy a vehicle without seeing it and driving it and taking a look at it, just sending them your money and putting it on a truck and getting it delivered to your house. It's different when it's a new vehicle. I think that's where you'll need to look. Continue looking for Bolts and Konas, and maybe take Dom's advice and see what first gen Ioniqs are out there.
I have one other suggestion. I would say, so I don't think they have a job exactly right now, but once they do, figure out what that commute is. It's probably going to be within 100 miles or within 50 miles from their house, I would think. So, I would suggest getting a low range electric vehicle like a Nissan Leaf, or I've noticed in Canada there's a lot of Smart 42s, even a really nice cabriolet. If you like small cars, like this girl likes small cars, you can't get any smaller than that. And they're kind of tough. They kind of stand up to a fair amount of abuse. Kyle Connor owns one, and is famously driven it, off road and done lots of stuff with it, and it's held up pretty well. Yeah, so I would look at some of those like lower mileage, like Leafs or Sparks, maybe something closer to your area. Spend like the least amount of money. That would leave you a bunch of money sitting in the bank that you can have when you finish school. You get a better job. Then, if you want to do your road trips, rent a car. It's for 2 weeks. It's gonna be a few $100s, rather than spend like an extra 10 grand on a car. You could just use $1,000, and that's like maybe 2 road trips or something. I don't know. That's
One
just my other suggestion.
one last thing, she did mention that the i3 was on her list originally, right?
Mhm.
As somebody who's owned two i3s, I loved my i3s. If you don't get the range extender, you're concerned about maintenance and about BMW repair costs. They're extraordinarily reliable. There's not a lot of things that break on them if you get the BEVs. The range extender is another story. But if you get a 2017 onward, actually 2016 and a half, that's when they came out with the larger battery, the 94 amp hour battery, and that has a 33 kilowatt hour capacity. You're going to definitely get over 100-mile range. Well, now that it's used, you might be right around 100 miles, but that I wouldn't be afraid to get one of those if it has good maintenance records. And a lot of times, they could pull up, the BMW dealers can pull up the history of the vehicle. If it hasn't had problems, then I wouldn't be afraid of getting one of those. I loved my i3s. They're such fun cars to drive. They still look futuristic when they're driving down the road. You go driving behind an i3, it looks like something that just came out, and the damn thing's 10 years old. So my wife still misses our i3s, and so consider that. Don't rule that out yet. If you can get a 17 at a good price and it has good maintenance records, I'd pull the trigger on that.
Right on. Sounds good. That's good advice, I think. I also like the BMW i3 a lot, and I considered getting that. But I also thought, well, if something breaks, it's going to be really expensive, and I can't. That's kind of one of my thought process for get going with the Spark EV instead, which was like a less robust kind of car, I think. But I got lucky; nothing broke off on it, or it didn't get dented or anything. But
I
that was
never
just
had anything break on my i3s.
right, right,
And the one
right.
I had, I forget how many miles. I think I had 90,000 miles on the first one, or no, maybe 75,000 miles, something like that. But in any event,
And the
um,
cabin's a great place to spend some time, and it's got great driving dynamics. They're great little
yeah,
cars. Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. So our last email comes to us from Justin, and he says, "Hello, gentlemen. Are you a gentleman? I currently
You,
lease a sorry.
you're the one
I
that makes up the adjectives for me, so I don't know if I am today or not.
generally yes, yes. Um, unless I get yeah, okay, we'll leave that. I currently lease a fully loaded 2023 Bolt EV 2LT minus Super Cruise. So the 2023 is an MSRP swap, which replaced my previous leased 2021 Bolt LT. On the original lease contract, due to the battery recall, GM also gave me a check for $7,000 for the MSRP difference. I can purchase the 2023 Bolt for 19,877 buyout amount on the contract in about 9 months when the lease ends. I think it would also make a lot of sense financially to purchase the Bolt. I am also considering getting into something that is a little more money, but with better performance. There are Tesla Model 3s with rear-wheel drive for around 26,000. The Model 3 will be older with more miles, but with rear-wheel drive and better performance. Is spending 5,000 to 6,000 more for a used Model 3 worth it over the Bolt? Thank you, Justin. Well, this is an interesting conundrum. This sounds familiar, actually.
Yeah, I don't know if yeah, right. As a Model 3 owner and then a Bolt owner. Here's what you do. Buy out the Bolt lease. You have to at 19.8. The car's worth more than that. Put it up for sale. See if you can sell it for like 23, 24,000. It's a 2023 Bolt. You can't have a lot of miles on it. You might be able to get close to 25,000 for it. And then buy the Model 3. Take the money and the difference and buy a Model 3. That's you can't give the Bolt back at 19.8. You're above water at that price. You're leaving money on the table. Buy it out and then sell it. Look at what used Model 3s, 2023 Model 3s, Bolt EVs are selling for. And don't forget, once you can't get a Bolt anymore in like two months or so, they're going to be in more demand. So there's nothing else that's affordable out there. You're going to have a EV that's a year old because it'll be 2024, and this is a 2023 model. I'm assuming you don't have a lot of miles on it. Did he mention the miles, Dom? And I forgot, I missed that. You can't have that many miles.
Yeah, usually leases only have 10,000 miles a year on
but
it.
I mean, the lease says that, but you can drive it as long as you want. You just end up paying the difference. I'm guessing it's going to have low mileage. Buy that thing out and immediately put it for sale. And I bet you could sell it for 24,000 in a heartbeat. And now you're only 1,000 or 2 off of the car you really want. It sounds like you really want a Model 3, and I don't blame you. They're such fun to drive. I love my Bolt. Bolt's a great vehicle. I'm so disappointed that GM is going to discontinue them now. But the Model 3 is a special car, and it's a different driving experience. It's bigger, it's cooler, it's faster, it's more fun. It's not the Bolt's basic transportation, and the Model 3 is a little bit more than that. So that's what I would do. Buy out your lease, flip the Bolt, get the Model 3.
Wow, that's great. That's great, Tom. I never would have thought of that. Actually, I never realized. Yeah, I've never leased anything myself personally, so I don't have that kind of experience. I understand to really, look at, judge. Should I sell it? Should I, let it go? But but I think you have a great argument there. And Model 3s right now are, and I would definitely get to the Model 3 eventually, because this is kind of like the conundrum I was in earlier this year, right? I was looking at the Bolts. I was going to buy a Bolt, and then Kyle convinced me to buy a Tesla Model 3 instead. And one of the main thoughts behind that was it would lose less in depreciation over a couple of years than like a new Bolt EV, which now that prices have really come down at Tesla, that's not really washing out super great for me.
And the Bolt's prices are going to go up because you won't be able to buy them anymore.
Right.
You're going to hit with a double whammy.
Yeah. But I would still, like, if you can get decent money out of the Bolt. So if you sell it at just below 25, then to a dealer, you have to be a dealer to get that $4,000 incentive off, right?
You have to buy it from a dealer.
Right. So if he wants to sell it, for 25 or whatever price, whoever he sells it to can't get that incentive.
I know, but don't forget, a lot of people aren't even aware of how that works.
True. This is true.
And they'll, if they see a Bolt from a private owner for sale that they like it and he's got it listed for like $23.99 or something, they might just jump on it and buy it, or maybe do a little negotiating. You end up selling it for $23.5, and meanwhile you paid $19.8. So you just put a few $1,000s back in your pocket. Now you're closer to the Model 3. That's a slam dunk in my opinion.
Right. And looks like Model 3s, man, there's like a fire sale on them right now. It feels like I'm looking on cars.com. Maybe just share that screen.
Well, there's so many of them, Dom.
Oh my God. And cheap. Like, I mean, you really have to look into these things. You can't like just take all these prices at face value, and you have to look also at the mileage. But so they could have what do you call issues,
salvage
like
title, or problems, accidents. Just do due diligence.
Title issues is kind of what I was thinking of.
23,000. That's crazy.
28 long range.
Yeah, you could sell a Bolt for more than that.
Possibly. I mean, right, but the Bolt will have a lot fewer miles on it. But but if you can find, like, I personally, I would stay away from some of these higher ones. I mean, but that's up to you. That's your own personal, because these will be out of warranty. So that's one thing to take into consideration as well. So you want, I think as low as miles a car as you can find, just to be on the safe side, But yeah. Did we answer that question?
I think so.
Okay. So I guess that brings us to the end of today's show. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below or get in touch with us on the social media platform of your choice. Don't forget, if you like the show, please give us a thumbs up, click subscribe, tap that bell icon for notifications. Thank you all very much for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Ciao.